if there's anything that's a really hot topic this time of year, right after Christmas especially, it's New Year's resolutions. And I know we all hate talking about it and we hate hearing about it. We hate reminders about it because we know that we're not going to be able to keep them, right? 90% of the time. But today I'm going to give you some tips about how you can keep your filmmaking New Year's resolutions. And I have 5 different resolutions that are just as ideas, to serve as ideas for you guys. And they're realistic. Don't get me wrong. These are realistic things that you can actually do and complete to the end. And it might seem a little bit intimidating or daunting at first, but I'm going to give you some tips on how to go through each one of these resolution ideas. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I hope you guys are ready for this and are excited and pumped. I know it's been a weird year, but it's time to get pumped up and be ready for the new year and go into it strong and finish it strong. This is episode 28 of the Film Frat Podcast. Let's go.
This is the Film Fraternity Podcast, a show that's all about filmmaking in college, so you can turn your student projects into powerful portfolios. And now, here's the host of Film Frat House, Zack Sabo.
Hey guys, it's Zack Sabo. I'm the host of the Film Frat Podcast. In case you don't know me, I'm a filmmaker who just graduated out of UCSD, UC San Diego. Graduated with a media arts degree, and I'm happy to say that because for a while I was just under that degree program, and it felt like just yesterday when I was still there. And yeah, I'm just excited to be done with it. But a lot of you guys are still in school, and a lot of you guys are actually like me, are graduated or are thinking about film school or have not even gone. They got a different degree. Maybe you got like an engineering degree or you got a computer science degree. And that's totally fine. But my goal of this podcast is to serve you, because I assume that you're listening to this podcast because either you know me or because you're interested in filmmaking, or both. Maybe you're both an acquaintance and someone who's interested in filmmaking just as much as I am. And my goal is to serve you with ideas and tips on things that you can do to improve your filmmaking skills and get yourself out there, make a portfolio of work that is worthy of being shown to people publicly. That's why I titled the slogan of this podcast, Turning Projects into Powerful Portfolios, right? It's turning your projects, which you might not even think about as a serious thing, into something that's serious, something that is presentable to people. And so that's the goal of this episode as well, is to give you guys ideas on how you can create and fulfill New Year's resolutions that will actually make an impact in your filmmaking journey. And I know it's been a crazy year this year, I can tell you that, but it's time to focus on what's ahead and just leave behind what's behind us now, because it's already behind us. 2020 is behind us. It's time to jump into the new year strong and to focus on that rather than keep reminiscing, or not reminiscing. That's a positive connotation there. I should say to keep just bringing up the past. That's generally not a good idea. And it's good to live in the moment and also think about the future. So that's what I'm focusing on now, is to talk about the new year 2021. And let's hope that it'll be our best year yet. And I know it might not seem like that to a lot of you guys. You might not believe it's going to be the best year that you've had, but I believe that for you. So I believe it. And as long as you believe, right? That's the Christmas theme. As long as you believe, it can happen. I do believe that belief is an essential part of making your year the best year, because if you don't believe it, it probably won't happen. That's just a fact, and that's what I've noticed too, is if you just don't believe in something, it's not going to happen. So first step is believe, right? Believe, and when I think of believe, I think of the Polar Express, right? You get the ticket, you get the golden ticket, and you get it punched out, and we don't know what it says at first, but at the end it says believe. And that's also the main theme of that movie, the actual theme from the soundtrack. I believe, was it? I think, yeah. It was sung by Josh Groban, the song called Believe. And while I'm not the biggest fan of Josh Groban, that song is freaking amazing and it has a great message. So believe, just believe, even though Christmas is already gone now. It's time to believe for the future. So make it count, right? Anyway, I kept talking about the Polar Express. I think of the past couple episodes, if you listen to the holiday special with me and Grant, we go into our favorite Christmas movies, and I'm happy to report, Grant, if you're listening to this, that I did get a chance to finally watch the Christmas Carol from 2009, the Robert Zemeckis movie featuring Jim Carrey. And I had to smile a lot of times throughout that movie, even though there were some serious moments in that film. Even during the serious moments, I just couldn't help but smile because I knew that behind that face that was just afraid of the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. That scared face was Jim Carrey's face. I just couldn't help but see that in Ebenezer Scrooge because it's obvious it's Jim Carrey's face, right? I assume that they used a lot of motion capture technology that was kind of pioneered in the Polar Express, and then it carried over into that film. But yeah, all the facial expressions behind Jim Carrey's face is just hilarious, and so I couldn't help but laugh and smile while I was watching it, even though there are a lot of serious moments. But it's a great film, so I now agree with Grant. It's great. It's a must see, especially during this time of the year. But now it's time to focus on the new year. Okay, I'm done talking about Christmas. So let's talk about New Year's. I know you guys hate New Year's resolutions a lot of times. Going to the gym is something that, a lot of people keep as their New Year's resolutions, and I'm actually keeping that finally. About a couple years ago, I started to want to go to the gym more, and so I've finally been keeping that, and it's been great. It really does make a difference to work out because it's something that just motivates you more, just keeps you inspired because it's something that you can improve yourself on. It's hard to explain, but by going to the gym and experiencing some level of pain, there's a level of gratitude that you feel and like a level of fulfillment that comes afterwards. So they always say no pain, no gain, right? So when you go to the gym, it's actually very fulfilling. So you want to actually keep going. You want to keep improving yourself. And that's once you start a habit, it just gets easier and easier to do that same thing as long as you keep to your promise and everything. So starting is always the hardest part, right? It's always starting that one thing that you always wanted to do. And it's hard. It's daunting. It's intimidating. It's something that seems like work, and we don't like work. We like convenience. We like easy things to do. But what I'm saying for this episode, the 5 tips I have for you, the 5 different ideas, actually, they may not necessarily be easy. I'm not going to say that they're easy. They might actually be a pretty challenging task, but you'll feel fulfilled in the end. Trust me. You'll feel really awesome after you do these. And it's something that I hope you can be proud of looking back. I hope it's something that you can use in a portfolio of work that you can present to people. You can pitch these ideas to people. Maybe you can create these as rough draft versions and then improve upon them later. That's totally fine. As long as you have something to show for, that's great. So for this episode, let's talk about some ideas. So I know it's hard to find some inspiration. I found inspiration hard to come by this year, especially 2020. It was an easy inspiration thief for a lot of us. 2020 just took away a lot of our inspiration, which is the reason why I have failed on keeping up with this podcast until now. And it's also hard to find inspiration under a time limit. I know we deal with a lot of that pressure in film school or whatever media or school program that you're in. We experience a time limit because quarters are only a specific length, or for you it might be a semester. we have a specific length of time where we have to complete these projects or these essays or these tests, these quizzes, whatever it is. Finding inspiration within pressure of time is not easy, but at least for these New Year's resolutions, we know that it's over a span of a year. And so I'm just going to have you keep in mind that as you keep going throughout this year, that you don't have to feel pressured to do it all at the same time or just complete it all so quickly, like within a month or 2 months. Feel free to take these goals and stretch it out all the way from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. You don't have to feel like you have to start late and then you realize, oh, I gotta catch up, gotta catch up, and then you don't do it in the end. So start early is number one, early tip. Start early, and then number two, stretch it out. So you can start your idea and then just slowly make progress each week. Doesn't have to be much progress, but as long as it's a little bit, maybe it's 1 page or it's 1 sentence in a script a week, then that's great. I'm going to go over that a little bit more, but this just is a couple of things before we get into these 5 ideas. Just keep in mind, there's a time limit. It's a year in these New Year's resolutions. Time to finish these projects within the span of a year, but don't feel like you have to complete it within a very short amount of time. And also start early. Don't procrastinate because you'll feel that time pressure. Now, time for these 5 ideas. Number 1, write these down. Number 1 is write 3 short scripts. Write 3 short scripts. And I'll explain why 3 in the next idea. But I feel like short scripts are a great way to start. And I'm going to give you a sort of framework of how many pages that should be. I recommend short scripts be between 5 pages to 15 pages. And doesn't mean you can't create something longer than 15 or shorter than 5, but I feel like that good average 5 to 15 pages is a good place to start because that's often the length of most short films that play in festivals. Again, I could be wrong. I think the shorter, the better. The shorter, the better, because the more films that festivals have to program into their festivals, the more films that they have, the better. So the shorter your film is, the better, because it has a better chance of getting into that festival because it's shorter in length. So actually, short scripts are great. Short ones are awesome. There's some festivals that even do micro short scripts. So that's under 5 minutes or under 3 minutes, sometimes even under a minute. But for the sake of time, this being the span of a year, I think it's a good idea to do scripts that are about the average length. So 5 to 15 seems like a good place. And if you want to average those out, it'd probably be 10 minutes or 10 pages. I actually did say 10 minutes on purpose in a way because usually in a script, if you create and format it properly, each page should approximately equate to 1 minute of screen time. Now, this is an interesting concept that I didn't really get at first, but I do realize that if you have an average amount of action and dialogue in your page of script, it should roughly equate to about 1 minute of footage that you shoot. And that's a great marker to use. It makes it super easy. Just know that there's a proper formatting technique for creating your script, and you should look that up. This is not the episode to talk about formatting your script. So do that in your own time. Do some research on that. There is a specific Hollywood format, and doesn't mean you should go out and buy, again, like Final Draft, which is the Hollywood standard screenwriting software. You can do it in Microsoft Word. You can do it in Notepad, for crying out loud. But just remember that what comes down to it is your story, and that you create a story that is worth telling in the end. Just create a few ideas. You can jot down a few ideas over the course of a week, just by things that you observe out in the world. It could be in your house. It could be an idea outside your window. It could be an idea that you find out in a park, in a local shop that you go out to, a library, a cafe, whatever it is. There's a lot of ideas out there. So, and it doesn't have to be 100% original. I say that because a lot of Hollywood films actually derive from a specific set of tropes or like a specific framework that's been told the same way a million times. And I say that in cases like Star Wars, even though I love Star Wars, but it's a classic story because it uses a classic framework of the hero's journey. I recommend you look that up. The hero's journey is a classic framework, and it's totally okay for you to use that framework even though it's not original. As long as you have original characters, original settings, that matters when using classic frameworks. Anywho, 3 short scripts within the 5 to 15 page time frame is great. That's a good place to start. The number two on my idea list is sort of similar to 3 short scripts, but it's a little bit more ambitious. It's writing half of a feature script. Okay? This is something that I actually have done. I'm about halfway through a script that I'm working on. It's feature length, and I'm really excited about it. And I started it last year, but I lost some inspiration this year to finish it. So, yeah, hopefully in 2021 I will be able to finish that feature and then be able to start preparing the pre-production work for it. But I want to focus on features now because I feel like that's a filmmaker's goal in the end, right? Is to create that one work where you can actually sell it to an audience and show it off to people in a theater setting. Or it doesn't have to be a theater. It can be at home streaming. But regardless, it's a product. A feature film I consider as a product, and a short script is a proof of concept, right? So a short script, a short film, is usually a proof of concept. It's a proof of something that can be extended to be a feature, or it's just a proof of your ability as a filmmaker to do a specific skill or a set of skills, right? Which is often why a lot of short scripts and films like to be shown at festivals, because the filmmaker can then show off their skill to people and say, hey, this is what I've done, this is what I can do, and I feel like I'm ready for that next step to go and make the feature. It's all leading up to the feature, I think, in the end. The short format is not really the end goal of a lot of filmmakers, and it shouldn't be. I think that if you're creating short films, you should start to think beyond the short format and into something that is longer in length and something that you can actually tell a quote-unquote complete story about. And I consider that complete story to be a feature-length script. And it's because that we're so used to that format. We're so used to seeing a film in a theater that's like 90 minutes plus that is the completeness of a film. A film should be 90 minutes or more. That's just how we've been, I think, indoctrinated. So I hate to use that word, but indoctrinated into the cinema, basically. The history of cinema has kind of been originally on that short format. But then very quickly it evolved into something much longer and much more ambitious. And we ended up finding that sweet spot of about 80 to like 120 minutes or something. But I say write half of a feature because, one, features are the end goal of most filmmakers, and it should be for you as well. Features are something you can sell to an audience and make money off of your dream. You know, you can make money off of filmmaking, which is awesome. That's my goal. And also, because writing half gives you that feeling like you don't have to be pressured to complete a whole script, because feature-length scripts are long. Understand that they can be anywhere between 80 to 120 pages. Some are even beyond 120 pages if you're, say, like writing the script for The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, right? Or freaking Marvel Infinity War, right? Those scripts are beyond 2 hours long, right? For sure. But it's time to realize that you don't have to make a film that's over 2 hours. I would say create your first feature to be 80 to 90 minutes, but no less, because it can't really be less than 80 minutes. That's just how it is when you're trying to sell a film. Can't really get it under 80. I mean, you can, but it's better to have a film that's 80 to 90 as a starting point. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong on that. I'm not in the industry by any stretch. But half of that would be approximately 40 to 45 pages, right? That's approximately the 3 short scripts that I was talking about just a little bit ago, right? If your short scripts are all about 12 to 15 pages, then 3 of those is almost 45, or about 45 pages. So you can basically think of it this way. Half of your feature is basically 3 short scripts, but it's telling the same story. So you can think of your feature as having a whole bunch of different scenes, but within those is kind of like 3 short scripts. So if you think about it that way, it doesn't feel so intimidating, right? See, it seems more realistic, seems more approachable, it seems more doable in the end. So that's another thing I recommend. Having that half of a feature ready, you'll feel so good by the end of the year, because you might even feel pumped to finish 3/4 of that feature by the end of the year. Maybe you'll feel so inspired that you can finish the whole script by the end of the year, depending on your writing abilities. And that's the other thing too. Don't feel pressured to have to do all this writing on your own. Find somebody who you can actually count on, or who might be really passionate about writing, and they can help you along the way. They can help do some transcribing. There's some trust involved in that, obviously. You want to make sure that there's someone you can trust who won't steal your idea or anything. But just have a friend who can type. If you can't really type that fast, but you have a really good ability at speaking out your ideas, saying your lines of dialogue, then have a friend just come by and have them type out your ideas as you say them. And that can help a lot. And a lot of people do that when writing books. So that's how they get books written, right? The author themselves don't have to necessarily type everything out. They just have someone who's a good friend, or someone who is their partner in crime, to help them type out their ideas and put it on the paper. That's what matters here. Putting it on paper, right? Get your ideas on paper so that you can save it and you can come back to it, and it just doesn't escape your mind. Get it on paper so that you won't forget it later. That's the key. All right, guys, number 3. Now we're going to get into filming and editing, okay? So we're done with writing. If you don't like writing, that's okay. Those first 2 ideas are not for you then. Let's talk about 3 and 4, which are pretty much similar. Number 3 is to film and edit a short documentary. Now, this is assuming that you already have an idea set in place, right? This is assuming that you have an idea. It doesn't have to be a full script written out. Usually documentaries actually don't have formal scripts, especially the short ones. But documentaries are not too intimidating in that you can go out into the world and just shoot, film, and edit whatever's around you, really. The cool thing is this can be done anywhere, and it should be done in places outside of LA and New York and all the big cities. Because I find a lot of the character, a lot of the charm of some of these stories in documentaries is somewhere that we are not familiar with. It's something that may be in a small town, something that is around a specific landscape that we are just not familiar with, we haven't been to. So this is actually calling for those people who live in the smaller cities to go and shoot whatever is around them. So filming a short documentary is cool because, one, it's just different. It's something that you can go out and find something that you like and just shoot it. You don't even have to have actors in it necessarily. You don't have to have people. It can be whatever. It can be a short experimental documentary about nature. It can be a documentary about food, about animals. It can be about whatever you want, really. And what matters is that it's unique. It's something interesting that we can look at and learn something from. Usually they're pretty educational, I think. Documentaries are educational. So find something that's in your local community. And it could be anything from shops to parks, to lakes, to mountains, to zoos. I mean, zoos are a little bit tricky because those you can't really get into without admission. So, hey, it could be something that you can promote the zoo about. So, anyway, talk to whoever's in charge of the property you're filming at, by the way. Don't just walk onto a property and assume that you can film there, especially if it's a public property like definitely like a bigger park. It could be could be that you get away with it, but if you have filmmaking gear, a lot of times people will or police will come and possibly stop you. That's not always the case, again, but just be aware that the property you're shooting on could have security of some sort. But the cool thing about going out into nature and hiking spots and other places is that usually you don't have to gain permission, like around lakes or mountains where there's hiking spots. Those are actually really nice spots to film. You can shoot awesome photos there as well, but just keep in mind that whole issue. It's actually happened to me once. I was filming on a beach with Grant, actually, for one of his films. And we were on a beach. It was actually a state property. It was somewhat protected by the state, and it turned out that we couldn't film there without prior permission from the Parks Service. So, yeah, we got booted out. That was something. It was a student project, but still, we couldn't film there, no matter what. Anywho, find something that you like. Find a shop and interview the owner. Find something out in nature that you can go and just reflect on. You can have a voiceover over it or not. I actually recommend those without voiceovers. Just find something that's interesting. Okay, number 4 is very similar to number 3, and that's film and edit your own original narrative. Okay? Find a short narrative that you already have an idea for. Maybe the script is already finished. It can be a micro short script that you've already you have an idea about, but you haven't put it on paper. If it's like 5 minutes or less, just go ahead and take a couple of months out of the year, the first 2 months of January and February, to write that short script, perfect it, and then for the rest of the year, that can be the time that you spend filming, doing the pre-production actually first, then doing your filming, then doing the editing. You can get it all done within a year. Easy. If we student filmmakers have to do 3, 4, 5 short scripts a year that are like over 10 minutes in length, then you can easily shoot a 5-minute over the course of a year. It's simple. It might seem a little bit intimidating for some of you who haven't done it before, but you can do it just using what you have around you. Especially this year, 2020, being the year of quarantine, right? We've had a lot of people shoot films purely inside of their house or outside of their window or just one step outside of their house, using whatever they have, whatever furniture they have, whatever walls they have to work with. That's all that they were able to film with. And same thing with the people around them. Sometimes they're only able to shoot by themselves, the filmmaker by themselves, or have their family members serve as actors. And I know it's not the ideal thing for a lot of us, but hey, if you had to stay inside, depending on where you are in the country or in the world, you can film whatever you already have. You just gotta be more restrictive with your story ideas. But that sometimes is where the creativity can come in. The creativity can sometimes spark out of restrictive conditions. It can come out of time limits. Time limits can seem like a burden. It can seem like it's something that's like taking away from your story, but sometimes time limits can actually help inspire you to create ideas that you wouldn't have if you didn't have that restriction. So sometimes restrictions are actually good. They can serve as creative catalysts, and it seems counterintuitive, but it's true. So there are quarantine festivals out there, by the way. If you don't have any ideas or you just can't go outside your home, know that you can film something in your home and be able to submit it to festivals that are specifically for those in quarantine or for those who can only film at home. It's crazy, but it's true. There are those festivals out there. And it doesn't have to be, again, doesn't have to have a lot of dialogue, doesn't have to have a lot of action. It can be short. It can be something micro, under 5 minutes. It can be something using miniatures. You know, there are some fan films out there that have miniatures or action figures from different films franchises. And they're able to do some amazing things. And one thing that comes to mind is when I interviewed Raymond Montemayor. He's the guy behind the Star Wars fan films called The Toys Awaken. And when I interviewed him, it made me realize that you can actually do a lot of different creative things at home and purely at home, because I would say over half of his film, The Toys Awaken, was filmed at home. And the cool part was he used these miniatures and action figures in such a unique way and be able to change their lip movements using some special software. He was really, really a genius behind using animation. So if you have some specific skills like that, like you're really good at animation or special effects, you can spice up your at-home film in so many cool ways. Just take a look at Star Wars The Toys Awaken. It's on YouTube, and you can see exactly what I mean. It's pretty awesome. And that was something, again, that wasn't original content in a way, because it's using the Star Wars franchise. It's a fan film. But it's original as a story enough to serve as a narrative that you can show off to people. Doesn't have to be completely original. Again, you can use that existing framework. You can even use an existing IP, meaning intellectual property. You can use an existing franchise to create something awesome. So again, don't feel like you have to create something purely original. That's something that you can use to film and edit a short narrative piece. And last but not least, number 5, guys, number 5 of ideas for New Year's resolutions is to film one scene out of a feature script. Now, this is something that can be done, again, from original or existing content. It can be something from Star Wars. It can be something from Titanic. It could be something from Gladiator, although that would probably be hard to do. So anyway, whatever is out there that has an existing script to it, or maybe it's something that you've already written. It could be just one scene. Again, I recommend it being longer than 10 minutes, but create a scene, or 2 scenes rather, from a feature script. And it could be a retelling of an existing story. It could be a parody of a story. Just create something that you can film and edit within the year. Again, I recommend that these set of scenes be around 10 to 15 minutes at least. So that way it serves as practice for you. If you're especially starting out as a cinematographer or director and you want to get an idea of what it's like to work with actors on a set and you haven't done it yet, this is a great way to start, is using an existing story to create something that you can feel like you can show off your skills with. It can serve as a proof of concept. Again, like I said, the short scripts and short films are usually great as proof of concepts of your skills and talents. And this is the same way with a feature. If you just take a couple of scenes out of that and you try to recreate that, then that could really serve as a great example of your work and what you can do as a director. And it doesn't mean you have to be the best writer. In fact, this idea is best for those who are not the best at writing. It's actually great for those who are more behind the scenes a little bit. They're not as much about writing, but they're about directing, and they're about cinematography maybe. So again, if there's something that you're really interested in, if you have an idea like from, I believe there's a director who actually took stuff from Stephen King's novels and tried to recreate that book idea presented in Stephen King's books and put it into a film format. That could also propel your journey in so many ways. I can't remember the director's name, but there was someone for sure who started off by doing a Stephen King retelling of one of his novels and put it up on the screen by telling that story in a cinematic way. And no one else had done that story, I think. No one else had done that specific novel as a film version before. So if you can create something that maybe you have a favorite book that you've read and try to create a film out of that, again, it has to be maybe 1 or 2 scenes only. So don't feel pressured to do the whole novel. But if you have a specific scene or a couple of scenes from that book that you really like, you can easily create that and transfer it over to a cinematic format and then create a film out of it using whoever you have around you as actors and as crew. I know it might sound a little weird. Some of your friends may not be actors. They may not be into filmmaking like you are. But sometimes you just have to grab whoever you can if you want to make your dream happen, right? I started off with making a couple of films with just my roommates featured in them. And I look back and think, those stories were not that great. As far as the directing behind it, I could have done a lot better, but I learned a lot from it. And that's the goal of all of these ideas, is to learn from them and better yourself as a filmmaker and be able to just go on this journey and improve upon yourself and your skills. So anyway, guys, I hope you really enjoyed this podcast and you got some ideas out of it. That's the main goal, is to help you guys on your filmmaking journey. And I really hope you guys have an awesome 2021 and that you guys are able to implement one of these 5 ideas. And I myself will try to finish at least one of these. And I think I know which one I'm going to do, is to finish my feature script. I have about half of it left. So that's about 45 pages to do. And I'm going to be doing that this year, coming up 2021. And I hope you guys will be doing one of these as well. Remember that you can follow the Film Frat podcast at filmfrat.com and also on Facebook at facebook.com/filmfrat, I think. We have a Facebook page, so just search the Film Fraternity Podcast on Facebook. Give us a like. We don't have a Twitter anymore, but you can definitely follow us if you already have not, actually, on any podcast platform that you're on right now. If you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and give us a follow. Same thing with Stitcher, with Apple Podcasts. There's a follow. Just give us a follow. And remember that we are actually going to be posting stuff weekly. And by us, I mean me. I'm going to try and keep to a consistent schedule of 1 episode a week. I hope you guys will enjoy them. I actually have a brand new student showcase episode coming up next week. Whatever Monday that's going to be. That's going to be January 4th. January 4th. On that Monday, we're going to have a new episode with an awesome interview with someone I've worked with, again, from the same sort of crew that I worked with Mark Vidano. I'm not going to give it away, but I hope you guys will enjoy that and keep up with the podcast, because we are going to stay with this schedule, and I promise that I'm going to keep coming up with new ideas. It's, again, something that I feel like may have a lot of pressure behind it, because there's a lot of stuff that goes into podcast creation. But I hope you guys really enjoy it. And if you really enjoy enough to give us a follow on Patreon, you can support, I should say, you can support the podcast financially over there at patreon.com/filmfrat. It would mean a lot to me. especially just starting out this podcast. I feel like it's still in its infancy. So if you have any ideas, you can also send them over by emailing me at zack@filmfrat.com. That's ZACK@filmfrat.com. I could definitely use those ideas. You can also DM me if you know me on Facebook and Instagram. And you can also follow us on Instagram, by the way. That's right. We have a Facebook and an Instagram for the Film Frat podcast. Again, it's just @FilmFrat. That's the handle on Instagram. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me in this episode. Remember that you are gifted, you are creative, and you are able. Enjoy your new year. Happy holidays.
That's all from this episode of the Film Fraternity Podcast. For more filmmaking tips and tricks you can use on your next project, visit www.filmfrat.com. That's FILMFRAT.com.